So I decided to break this video down into 3 different parts, mostly because there's just so much information to go over. But we are having a look at the Mabinogi Eternity page on the Korean website. And this is because there's a lot more information about this on the Korean site than there is on the NA site. So watch part 1 if you want to see, like, where we talked about this, taking the first step in the news of Eternity. And next we're going to look at Omniscient Art Perspective. Hello, I am Safety Director Raccoon, in charge of the art side of the Mabinogi Eternity project. When engine replacement discussions first started, I thought engine replacement work would be carried out at headquarters level. Before we knew it, at the 23 Summer Fantasy Party, we finally announced a replacement, so the Unreal Engine replacement. We thought that the replacement for Unreal should start with Neo. While producing Neo, I kept asking myself if the first impression of her that everyone had in their hearts was correct. While making the Neo launching video, how many times did you screen the short video in the development room? Modifications continued until late the previous day, but no one in the development room gave good feedback because Militians felt this way when they first met Neo in the Soul Stream. The first impressions and feelings and current longing are all different. We dared to say this is enough. This is because it could not be declared. However, we are very excited and happy about this work, and we have been providing. In the world of Aaron, it was not felt due to the limitations of the Pleon engine. We are waiting for the day when we can find immersion and vitality together. Mabinogi is now approaching its 20th anniversary, because it's been around for 20 years in Korea. It is truly an honor to be on this journey with Militians. So, finding the Aaron we want. We already saw most of this post on the NA announcement, Mabinogi Eternity Project, finding the Aaron we dream of. So that's most of this information here. You can see, like, this is mostly what we just saw. So we'll be skipping over this. I'm not going to read all this. Check out the NA site or check out the Korean site and read all about it if you want to go over the information and compare the differences. And next we'll take a look at, let's start with Neo. So this is from a character modeler for the Eternity project. In early 2023, an engine replacement task force was proposed and the foundation work was being diligently done. One peaceful day I heard this story during a meeting. Let's start with Neo first. I heard about the renewal of Neo, the representative NPC of Mabinogi, and along with the news of Neo's renewal, you will also hear about the difficulties that previous Neo workers experienced. This is a legendary story that cannot be fully written here, so the tension was high even before it started. Neo has an expression that seems both kind and sad, yet unknown. Neo's basic design is also burdensome. How shall I express it? Also, how much modeling specifications should be taken from Unreal Engine? Whether there are expression methods that need to be improved, and how much of the parts that could not be expressed due to the engine's limitations. So here you can see what Neo looks like in Leon Engine, and over here you can see what she looks like in Unreal Engine on the right. Personally, I think they did a really good job remaking Neo in Unreal Engine. Eternity's Neo original drawing drawn in the direction of renewal. The initial look was a mess, but as we received customized feedback, we gradually approached the unknown character Neo. In those cases, I put the two Neos side by side and worked on matching the images. I think this section played an important role in helping Militians accept this work as Neo. Yeah, I think they did a great job with Neo. Like, I know it's really hard to create a lot of these characters that we care about, and I know it's hard to, like, recreate the world of Eren, because, like, none of us really want the world of Eren to change, or the characters to change that much. We still want it to look and feel the same. And I get that that's not an easy task to ask the developers to do that are working on this Unreal project. Posing where you can feel the wind, so this looks really cool. I posed, went through revision after revision, and even right before completion, I continued to worry about how much I could make Neo smile. What kind of smile would you like from Eternity to give you? In situations where you have no choice but to be cautious about any expression, morph work, facial expression work is done. The Neo is smiling. At first, I kept the smile small, but my thoughts came together to express Neo's feelings more clearly so that they could be conveyed to the Militians. I was so careful about making Neo smile that I even remember separately requesting guidance from the art director. This Neo, who smiled brightly for a moment during the work process. There were many difficult moments while working, but now I am full of gratitude. Although every day is still a struggle, I will work hard until the day I meet all Militians. So yeah, this is a huge challenge for the development team to make the game look and feel good. Like, they're under a lot of stress about this, and because it is a very difficult thing to do. But overall, I think they're doing a really good job with it. So let's move to Unreal. This is Brown Sauce. I am currently working on replacing the Mabinogi engine. I wrote this because I wanted to tell Militians about background modeling among the work I did. I hope this article will be of some help to those who are curious about the engine replacement process. For nearly 20 years, Mabinogi has taken deep roots in Pleon. Therefore, it was obvious that the moving task was not as easy as transplanting a young tree. Of course, ultimately, most of the buildings and objects you can see in Unreal Engine will be newly built to be pretty and colorful, but for that work you need a rough sketch. Because creating numerous new sketches is a huge cost itself, we had to find a way to replicate Eren from Pleon and use it as a sketch at a lower cost. The first thing I was worried about when planning to transfer Mabinogi as is the question, can Pleon's specific world data files and modeling be used directly in Unreal Engine? And sadly, of course, that wasn't possible because it was Pleon only. In this situation, three ideas came to mind. The first idea was to modify the Unreal Engine code to read Pleon-specific files. However, if you modify the engine code like this every time you upgrade the engine version, there's a possibility that your modified code will conflict with the updated code. Then you must continue to fix the conflicting code. And because the cost of work is higher compared to other ideas, I didn't think it was the best way to create a rough sketch. The second idea was to modify the Pleon-specific files so that Unreal Engine could read them, but there was a problem with this method too. When creating objects in Mabinogi, modeling work is done using commercial programs. Afterwards, we convert it using a program we developed ourselves so that the Pleon engine can read it. Unnecessary data is deleted and some necessary data is calculated in advance for optimization. However, among the data erased at this time, there were values needed by Unreal Engine. Although it is possible to construct a 3D model with the remaining data, except for the removed data, this method was not the best, as it was noticeably different from the original. This file was modified so that Unreal Engine could read it, but the goddess statue looks angular due to the lack of smoothing. The third idea was to move the original modeling data into Unreal Engine before converting it into a dedicated file. Unreal Engine can easily and simply read files created with commercial 3D modeling programs. Therefore, as long as you have the original before conversion, I thought I could upload it to the Unreal in a form similar to Pleon. The first attempt to upload raw data to the Unreal was successful. The original data was output from a commercial 3D modeling model as a file that Unreal could read. When I imported this to Unreal, it looked much better than I imagined. However, this method was not perfect either. This is because traces of Pleon still remained. When working with a 3D model of a Mabinogi object, in addition to configuring the object's shape, data for interaction within the game is also added. However, this data was not needed in the sketch. Rather, the shape of the sketch looked different due to this data, so I had to find a way to erase this unnecessary and disruptive data. To transfer the original modeling data to Unreal, read a file in a 3D modeling program, and then it must be output as a file that Unreal can read. The problem is that even though this process is short and simple, the number of files is too large. The problem is that it takes too much time for a person to do all these files one by one. Considering the physical time, automation was essential. The 3D modeling program used by Mabinogi has a script language that supports automation. If the user scripts the tasks or actions he or she wants to do with the modeling program in advance, you can repeat that task over and over with the click of a button. Use this script to do the printing work that had to be done for each file one by one, while automating the program to do the work for you. I also deleted unnecessary data from the sketch that I was concerned about earlier. Also, the texture of the original modeling data must be converted into pixel format so it can be read by Unreal Engine. This processing was also programmed to be done in the script. In order to use the transferred 3D model as a sketch, you must place it in Aaron, created with Unreal. However, Unreal Engine cannot read Pleon's specific world data files, so I had to check the location, direction, and size in Pleon one by one. There were a lot more pieces and more work involved than the previous work, and because it had to be processed using Unreal Engine, I couldn't even write a script for a 3D modeling program. While I was thinking about it, I thought of an idea. If it is possible to extract object type, location, direction, and size from a dedicated world data file, couldn't we use it for placement in Unreal? When constructing Pleon's Aaron world, Mabinogi uses its own world creation program. 3D model data created with a commercial program is imported into the world creation program and placed. Afterwards, the batch status is finally converted into a world data file. The self-developed program was familiar to me, and the inside data file was. So I was able to modify the program to extract the data needed for deployment from the world data file. Now all that's left is to have Unreal Engine read the extracted data and automatically place the 3D model. This issue was addressed by adding a feature to the engine. Because the automatic placement function was implemented with functions that already exist in Unreal Engine, it was relatively less expensive than an engine modification, and the risk of code conflicts was low. Dumbarton transferred to Unreal Engine to use as a sketch. Through these processes, my work on automating sketch production was completed. Currently, background modelers are working hard to create a new Aaron based on the sketch. My eyes are purified as I look at Aaron being reborn in high quality. Although my work does not create a finished product, I feel great joy and pride because I am helping Aaron in her process of rebirth. There's a lot of work ahead before Mabinogi can fully move to Unreal. There are many technical problems that need to be solved. It may not be an easy road, but for the day, we invite all Militians to the new Mabinogi. We will move forward steadily and diligently. Okay, so we're going to be taking a look at another one of the posts on the Korean Mabinogi Eternity Project site. So I would like to talk about texture production during the process of remodeling Turconail, where Militians will live. If you change the engine to Unreal, the background graphics will have to get better. Wouldn't it be possible to make it respond to real-time light by adding normal, roughness, and specular so that the characteristics of each material stand out? I'll make all the backgrounds you've wanted to make for a while. The will to create a truly fantastic background was sparked. However, our Mabinogi isn't like this. I worked too hard on sculpting using graphics tools, but it didn't have the hardwood feel that Mabi has. When I strengthened the normal, realizing low polygons with the three-dimensional effect of high polygons, the clear feeling typical of Mabi did not appear. However, I gathered my courage and went back to the beginning and thought about what elements determine the characteristics of Mabinogi's background. Mabinogi is a cartoon graphic. The flat feel of the environment setting creates a unique 2D feel and the diffuse texture has strong contrast to bring out the sense of mass. The sense of shape and proportion of the background had a simpler and more casual feel than the realistic proportions. On the other hand, the texture was closer to real life than expected. In these cases, Mabinogi's background identity was being added. So here's a good example of like the wooden textures being showed well. And then Avalon clearly shows like stone texture. This was it. More than anything, I realized that texture plays a big role. The unique, clean, and organized feeling comes from the texture. So, I tried creating the texture right away. First, create a shape. To what extent should sculpting using graphics tools be done? In sculpting shaping using graphic tools, I decided to neatly process large chunks and edges and only add large cracks to the wood texture. Work efficiency is also important, so the wood grain feel was created using alpha in the tool. So here you can see, like, this is the door to Duncan's house, and this is like the window. We've all seen the preview of his house in Unreal Engine. Second, create a diffuse base color of the object texture. In the past, texture creation was created by combining photo textures with Photoshop or drawing them directly. Nowadays, several tools such as ZBrush and Substance are used. Looking at the Mabinogi texture, we could see that it was close to real life and had a high density. It has a semi-realistic feel that has been processed through photo texture synthesis or stylized texture with high detail. Since it was produced 20 years ago, it had a strong feel of a photo composite hand mat. To reflect these aspects, using the production tool, we used the wood grain texture as a base and built it up one by one. Use the sharpen filter sharpening effect to express highlights and depicted parts more clearly. In particular, care must be taken when creating high polygons to clearly express highlights and shading at the edges. And this looks pretty cool. You can like see how in this picture like the wood is like changing. That looks really cool. And here you can see the front of Duncan's house again. This was it. Although the road was difficult, I was very proud that I had laid the foundation for transferring Mabinogi's style to the new engine. Yeah, it's very important Mabinogi has the same style, and this guy did really good work on this. Like, this isn't easy to do. So on the left we have existing resources, so the resources from Pleon Engine, and on the right we have the Unreal Engine resources. So this is the church in Pleon Engine and the bank in Pleon Engine. And this is the church in Unreal Engine and the bank in Unreal Engine. Making the tiles was also difficult. The tiles also used a texture that was close to real life and had a high density. Think of it as a semi-realistic texture with a processed feel through compositing from a photo texture or a stylized texture with high detail. I tested it out in two ways. Processed through Substance Designer texture creation tool for soil and grass, you can see it here, and photo plus PRB, so physically based rendering, resource synthesis for the soil and grass. So you can see like the two differences between these pictures. How to create a Substance Designer from a stylized feel to a more realistic depiction. Advantage: as work resources accumulate, you can quickly work with tiles with a different feel by reorganizing and recycling nodes. Disadvantage, it takes time to express photo-like details. And photo texture and PRB resource plus substance designer and sampler equals composite. The work speed is fast. Disadvantages is it requires reliance on photo resources, so expressions are limited. So here is another cool picture of Turconail Town Square. This is kind of cool because now we have a closer look at the actual town square area that a lot of us have spent a lot of time being AFK in. So I like the wood that they decided to add here. That wasn't here before. It used to just be all stone. It looks like they added like wood right here and like the four corners. I think that's to make it feel a little bit more like a bench. And you can also see like the brick right there. That looks cool. And you can see some brick over there too. Overall, I think they did a really good job with this. This looks like Town Square. It feels good. We can see everything appearing. We can see all the trees appearing, all the buildings and fences, the water, the dock for fishing. Let's go right to here. This is our first real look at like Turconail as a whole. The only thing we really can't see is Fergus's shop. So there's the healer's house way over there. That's going to be the graveyard. I would love to see some close-ups of what the graveyard is going to look like. Looking back, a lot of things happened. There's still a lot to do, but the style has been established. This is how the background graphics of Mabinogi Eternity are being produced. So this was an interesting post to read. I'm definitely glad that they're interested in capturing Mabinogi's style and making it feel like the same game. Alright, let's play Mabinogi today. Oh wait a minute, I forgot to load up Xanafiedlion. That's the one thing I forgot to do. Okay, there we go. We'll use the cat PNG tuber for Xanafiedlion today. Hey, Otaku! Yeah, I've done all the weekly ones. All that's left is these daily quests. The last weekly wasn't very long. It was just like, cook up a few dishes. Oh wait, and today's the last day of the event too, so I guess I'll have a total of 20 coins after today. Wonder what I'll be able to get with 20 coins. Wow, this stuff has really gone up in price lately. Usually they have some of these for like 40 or 50k. But not as many floating around. I guess I'll wait to buy any then. Let's raise up some likability here. But today's just going to be a pretty small, casual Mabby stream. We're going to do the serious stuff tomorrow when all the Halloween stuff starts. Oh, and I don't even think I logged in yesterday, so yeah, we gotta purchase 500,000 gold. Yeah, okay, I got enough gold to cover that, that's fine. What do we have for shadow missions? Enemy behind, that one's not too bad. And Battle for Tailton 2. I like Battle for Tailton 2, we'll do that. That's probably my favorite shadow mission. Oh, and I'm probably a Dark Diviner right now, so I'll switch to Explosive Vanguards so my XP can go to that. Alright, there we go. Let's see what I can get with 20 coins. Yeah, 15, 30, 20. $40. Yeah, not really too many options here. Alright, well, first things first, let's get some Dan tests taken care of. Oh, if I want to train Pummel up, these enemies are gonna have to live. On second thought, maybe trolls would be better? The wild trolls out here, they might be able to survive. Then again, I don't know. They might be a little too weak. If not the trolls, then maybe the amethyst and crystal golems. At least the ancients can take a few hits. Let's see how much a regular wild troll can take. Yeah, this might work out. WASD movement's a little messed up here. Okay, we have another ancient. good. We have half the XP we need on that one, and like 34 of the XP we need on that one. Maybe try these guys over here. Yeah, I need to be landing more of those pummel hits, so maybe I will go train against golems. Let's see. Actually, I haven't discovered a lot of the... This is the problem with the Traveler's Guide, you don't actually click on a lot of the moon gates themselves. I think they're near the Black Beach Moon Gate? Yeah. These guys should be tougher than the trolls. Hey! Well, maybe they're not that much tougher. Summon the bunny if they drop gems and have that. Oh no, you're not getting me with that windmill crap again. Oh, there it finally comes over here. Hey, get back over here. Where are you running away? Okay, let's deal with that one next. I'm gonna freeze the other one so it doesn't interfere. There, that worked out. Okay, I think we should have 100 XP on both those now. Yeah, 102 and 102. That's great. Now we can take the Dan 2 tests. So that didn't take as long to train up as I thought it would. I think we'll work on Pummel today for the Dan tests. So let's get to the advancement hall. Alright, let's take the Dan test for Pummel. So Pummel Dan 2. Let's give this a try. We need to get 12k points. So SS rank. Let's go ahead and get things set up here. I think I just need like Pummel and Crisis Escape, and I guess Tumble might be helpful too. That's weird because I'm not supposed to pass until I get 12k points. Is it slightly less on Wednesdays? Like, we don't quite have 12k points left unless the point system made a mistake. Anyway, that wasn't too bad, so we'll probably... I was kind of expecting to fail that test. But we'll probably get to Dan 3 or Dan 2 pretty easy. Oh wait, this was the Dan 2 test, not the Dan 3 test. So yeah, 11k points would be about right. Okay, let's go again. So we just need this over here. Tumble can stay where it is. Perfect. Alright, one more time. Alright, Dan tests are done. So that means we can take Pummel up to Dan 2. And the damage goes up to 960%. It's at 930 now. That's not too bad. Where are all my Warp Imps at? Here they are. This one has the Magmel saved. Let's use Divine Link again. I don't know how long that has. I'm gonna try something for the Magmel dungeons. I think I'm gonna try switching to Harmonic Saint. That way I can... That way it'll be easier to like keep my pet alive. And we'll set up the skill bar for the Harmonic Saint stuff. Yeah, this can revive the pet. Hand of Resurrection. Additional HP recovery based on healing skills, recovery value. Let's get my pet out. Yeah, it's pretty handy. Okay, and that one's kind of like an instant heal thing. I'm thinking it might be easier to put like battle astrologer skills here and the healing stuff up top. So maybe these three could go like up here. Try that one right there. We'll put him as resurrection on F8, and then in case we run low on MP, let's put inspiration on F9. Since we have the extra slots, put that there. And then I'll set up my battle astrologer skills over there too. There, let's try that out. We're gonna use Iris again, because why not? And this way we can keep a better eye on her health and hopefully keep her alive. As your pet is kind of vital for this.
you
Finally. Man, those trees were pretty stubborn for those last two. That took a while. But we finally got them. Alright. Oh, we're at the boss? Yeah, looks like it. I don't know how hard the boss is to solo. But we'll find out. Wait, I need to... There we go. I need to make sure my fallen fairy doesn't die. Coming in here with Harmonic Saint was the right call, though. Okay, let's use this. Oh, looks like he healed. Crap, is this one of those bosses that can heal all the time? If he can, that'll be a big pain in the butt. Oh yeah, he is healing again, crap. See if I can get another Divine Link set up. Might not be possible. Do we even need the Fallen Fairy summoned? I might just be able to attack him myself. Yeah, I think we're okay. Don't think we'll worry too much about her. I wish I had my Dark Diviner skills for at least the boss part, but... It looks like around 90% they start healing. Oh, this time their health was dropping a little bit lower. Oh good, I can actually break that. So I just have to make sure I attack a lot when that goes on. Alright, well, we got to the boss, but the boss of the Magmel dungeon was kind of tough. But I think we'll wrap up the Mabby stream right around here for the day, and tomorrow we'll get started on the Halloween events that are starting.